Nonprofit organizations are well known for addressing societal and community challenges, but the nonprofit sector gets far less attention for the significant role it plays in the economy. In fact, the sector is an economic engine that increasingly offers a place for students to launch successful and rewarding careers. Hello, and welcome to The On-Ramp, an ongoing series that highlights thought leadership from Suffolk University in downtown Boston. My name is Vasilina Kazakova, and today I'll be speaking with Professor Sonia Allain. She's Assistant Chair of the Public Service and Healthcare Administration program in Suffolk Sawyer Business School. She's also an executive in residence whose expertise lies in the nonprofit sector. Professor Allain, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your background in the nonprofit world.
So I was exposed to nonprofits when I started to work as the Director of Investment for Mass Affordable Housing Alliance, one of our leading affordable housing organizations here in Massachusetts. And that really catapulted me into working with nonprofits and seeing all of the outstanding work that they do.
Amazing. And what are some of the classes that you and others teach here at Suffolk?
So at the undergrad level, social change, fundraising for nonprofits. At the graduate level, revenue strategies. We have a class with civic engagement, grant writing. So we have a host of opportunities here and courses that we teach. At the undergrad level, students can minor in nonprofit management and public service. And then we have a graduate certificate in nonprofit also.
Wow, that's an amazing selection, actually. That's awesome. And why is it important to teach business school students about nonprofits?
So they are a vital part of our society. As you mentioned in your opening remarks, they're an economic engine. One of our largest employers here, which is Mass General Brigham's, is the largest nonprofit employer. People don't really think about hospitals when they think about nonprofit organizations, but our hospitals are nonprofit. And so it's important for our students to understand that they can also work in the nonprofit sector, that the skills and what they're learning here at Suffolk are transferable. So you can do accounting for a nonprofit, right? You can do management for a nonprofit, and so it's important for our students to think about that as a career, and they can work for a nonprofit and do good at the same time. In Massachusetts, we have approximately 34,000 nonprofits, so
Wow.
you think about the kind of landscape that students
Yeah.
have to select from.
Absolutely.
So I think it's very vast, so it's great opportunity for our students
Yeah,
to be
no.
exposed.
That's definitely amazing. Definitely opens up that job search after
Yeah,
post-grad.
yeah.
How has the Sawyer Business School made a commitment to teaching students about nonprofits?
I think under the leadership of Dean Zhang, she really has a commitment to immersive learning, which is one of our pillars, and I lead our service learning area where students in my social change class and my fundraising class get to work directly with clients. And so our clients, we have approximately 30 nonprofits that we've worked with since the fall of 2019, and students really get hands-on experience about addressing the issues and the problems that our clients have, and really get involved and make recommendations to them. We have a showcase at the end of each semester where the client comes back and actually hears firsthand from our students what their experience has been like, and the recommendations that they worked on. So they provided recommendations. So, for example, Bridge Over Troubled Waters wanted our students to help them think about their website and how are they reaching the youth that they serve. And so students made good recommendations that they implemented and are able to reach that generation much better than they were doing. I went into one of our organizations, our clients, maybe a month ago, Massachusetts Advocates for Children, and on the wall when I walked in, she had adorned her wall with the posters that students made that kind of walked them through the process. She goes, "Oh, I'm so proud of these posters. I was so proud of what the students did for us, and so it's real work and real impact."
No, that's incredible. I love when employers and students can collaborate because I think both benefit just about the same.
Absolutely.
Employers and clients benefit from the ideas that students bring, and then students really get that experience outside of the classroom, and that helps
It's
them
real.
in their
Yeah.
academic career
Absolutely.
and post-grad, which I
Yeah.
think it's incredible for both parties involved.
And it makes our students stand out,
Yes,
right? Because they have
absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
that experience.
Oh, yeah. Who are some of the nonprofits your students have worked with?
So we have worked with Mass Advocates for Children, as I stated. We work with the United Way. We've worked with Jewish Vocational Services, JVS. We've worked with ABCD. We've worked with St. Francis House. We've worked with the Boston Public Schools. We've worked with the City of Boston. We've worked with Youth Build Boston. We've worked with Mass Housing Partnership. I mean, we've worked with a host of organizations, and so students really get, you know, a complement of who's here in the city, right?
Right.
And to really understand what the missions are of all of those nonprofit organizations.
No, that's amazing. That's such a wide array of things, like focusing on children, housing,
Yeah.
so many just things to expose students to, and like kind of, I think, help them even kind of pave the way to see what they're passionate about. So I think it's absolutely incredible. And can you tell us of any like success stories about your students?
Sure. We have many, but the most recent one was my student, Corinne Tangarone. She came to my class, my social change class, and really took a liking to what she was experiencing. And I have a lot of guest speakers come and speak to my students so that they can, the theory is important, but also what the practical experience is like and what are the organizations actually facing. And one of my my nonprofit partners, who was actually in my class yesterday, is inner city weightlifting, and they work with at-risk men in particular who were formerly incarcerated. And so they shared with my students, and Corinne actually took it upon herself to kind of reach out to them and ask if there were any internship opportunities. And so she worked for them that summer, and then she came to my fundraising class, and so she was hooked. So she was, you know, she was not a nonprofit minor at that time, and then as a result of being in the classes, she then registered to become, you know, to take the nonprofit minor, and then we worked together so that she could matriculate into the Master's in Public Administration graduate program, which she did, and completed it within a year. And then while she was my grad fellow, had an opportunity to intern at the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, wow.
And then they offered her a full-time position. And so she is just wonderful. She's taken advantage of all the resources that we had here at Suffolk, and is doing well.
No, that's incredible. And I think the basis of that success story is just like the exposure
Yes,
that she got from the
absolutely.
class. And I must point out, the structure of your classes sounds really amazing by kind of combining theory and combining like bringing in guest speakers and seeing, because I think for students it's kind of difficult sometimes to put the pieces together
That's
when
right.
they're learning a lot of theory, and then they just struggle to find that what is the purpose of this. So by bringing guest speakers and allowing them to have those like service learning opportunities, I think that really like shows them what the purpose of all of this is, and it like gives them purpose. Like, this is why I show up to class, this is why I do what I do. So I think that's absolutely incredible, amazing structure of your class.
Thank you.
And what are some of the challenges that nonprofits face these days?
I think, especially now in this environment, I think nonprofits have constantly continued to fill the gap that government was filling, and that responsibility, I think, is becoming much greater. So, but I think, you know, nonprofits, they're resilient, and now you know, like SNAP, right? So families are hungry, children are hungry, and the nonprofits have stepped up, and they've kind of reinvented themselves to think about, okay, well, we can't let families go hungry. We are going to do something. They've mobilized their resources and their neighbors. Everyone has a role to play. And as I tell my students, when we think about all of these issues, there's faces attached to all of them. And so I tell them, if I've done my job well, that when they leave my classroom, they will have more empathy. And so when we've worked with veterans, we work with homeless organizations, but when you see a homeless person, you understand that there's a story there, there's a root cause, and people just didn't want to be homeless, right? And so I think having empathy makes you stand out as a leader, right? And as they start to, lead projects, lead teams, lead organizations, when they graduate, there's something about empathy, right? That we really need to harness. And so I tell my students that's very important.
Professor Arlene, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on The On-Ramp.